who is it? John Grisham, who said writing books is easy, selling them is hard. Well, I want to add to that and saying uh, the technology is even harder.
It is
Oh,
hard.
oh.
Yeah, it's
Well,
impossible.
but once you learn it, it's really good, but then you have the glitches, you know?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the
Awesome.
glitches. Yeah.
I haven't gotten that far.
Oh, they'll be there waiting for you as soon as you feel confident. Suddenly you'll get
Uh,
glitches.
yeah,
Exactly.
that may-
Awesome. So it looks like we are live. I'm so glad that everybody's here right now. We have Bonnie, my friends Bonnie, Lester, and Rob Scheinkoff in the room, and we have obviously other people watching live on YouTube. We do this every couple weeks, just have a check-in, have a meetup, little group meetup to talk about books, talk about issues we're facing with the book world, the challenges, the writing process, the editing process, the publishing process, the promotion process, all these things. My name is Dan Good. I am a book writer and ghostwriter. If you're interested in learning more about me, you can visit my website, writeagoodbook.com. But I'm super excited to talk today. It's kind of a freewheeling conversation. One thing I did want to talk about at first is covers for a couple minutes. It's so easy to get drawn in by a great book cover. It's a lot of times book covers are a first introduction to a book, and it's interesting and meaningful when a book cover really connects. When I think of book covers, and they don't need to be super complicated. One that I just grabbed on my bookshelf is by Rick Rubin, the music mastermind. Is called The Creative Act: A Way of Being, and it's simply a circle, and you could see this as a CD or a record. It's just an interesting cover. It's simple. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. But it's so special when you can find a cover that really draws you in and really resonates with you.
Yeah, I remember when I had to pick out the choices of covers that was presented to me. And when it's the right, I think it's when it's the right one, because I sure knew when it wasn't the right one.
Yeah.
But with that is also, the lettering, how the lettering is also.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really noticed that until I wrote my first book, paying attention to that, of what
Yeah.
draws you in. But that was interesting about that circle you just showed us, because you said it could be a disc or this or that or a record.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends what age you are. Your mind would go to this or that, what generation you belong to. I,
Exactly.
I always see your book over your shoulder. I don't
Yeah.
I don't keep I don't keep my book. This is my book, the one.
Yeah. Unwinding pain.
So I chose the green because that's a healing color, as
Hold that up.
opposed to blue, because blue is with scrubs. I mean, the two healing colors when I looked it up was blue and green. Well, most doctors are in blue scrubs, and I did not want to have blue. So I went with the green. But I started looking at all the healing and psychology books and health, self-help books, all the colors. And once you start putting that lens on to see what other authors who are in the same channel that you're in
Mm-hmm.
or in the same lane, you start noticing those things.
Mm-hmm.
It brings on a whole other purpose when you look at a book cover once you are inside of having to choose one.
That's a beautiful cover. That's a book I would pick up just to look at and see. I'd like to know more about that.
But it resonates because I have an artist heart and soul, and when I
Yeah.
saw it, it was like, oh yeah. But the other ones totally missed the boat totally. So
Well, I want to tell you, speaking of book covers, I did something stupid on my first book, and it was an anthology, and I had 42 contributing authors, and so I sent each one of them like 5 different book covers and asked their opinion. What
yeah.
a dumb idea that was. I mean, once I started getting them back, I thought, I don't care what you think. And so I ended up going with what I wanted, which was
Yeah.
so don't ever ask other people's opinions if you don't really want it. And I
And that's
didn't.
like
I didn't
I,
want it, but I asked anyway.
yeah, that
That's
I
too
feel that
funny.
way about beta readers, and you have people read
Yes.
the chat.
Yeah.
I have strong feelings about that. So how many books have you written?
Oh, just 2.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'm only on my second book, so I'm behind you because I'm so much younger than you are, you see. So
Well, I'm on my third, and I'm trying to go fast because my health is fading.
oh,
I finally had a health scare,
mhm.
and I said I got to get this written before it's too late.
The
You
wake
know.
up call. You had a wake up call.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
at first I'm making a joke of it, but there's nothing funny about it. You really do need to make the most of your time
Oh,
and
yeah.
not say, well, I'll work on it later in the year.
There's
And
no later. We live for
yeah,
today. There's no later.
I know
Yeah.
Bonnie resonates strongly with that. Bonnie like really lost a lot of years,
yeah.
with chronic pain and has really, it's just been really inspiring to see her, embrace this writing and, dive into this and explore it and help people. She's on YouTube as well. And it's really meaningful to see that fire being lit and what, you've been able to accomplish.
Mm,
Well, what I've learned about communication, writing's communication. So if you want to help people, what better
yeah.
way is there than to write? I mean, even though it's changing, and I've been working with Dan and how people want information in a different way, in a quicker way, because they're scroll and everything,
Mhm.
And so how do you present? I write in the world of nonfiction, so I'm not speaking to fiction, but I'm finding when to give information, how I do it is based on the current contemporary brain of how it's become due to technology.
Mhm.
But I think writing is just a wonderful way to connect, no matter what your field of interest is.
Yeah,
So that's in my
sure.
experience. So I like it because it's a tool. And I'm learning more about grammar than I ever did before when I was in school and I was too busy chatting, strengthening one of my other strengths is human relation skills, but I should have been learning about grammatical stuff. But that was kind of boring back then, but now I need it.
That's why we have editors.
Well, yeah, thank God. Thank goodness for editors.
Why we have Dan.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, and also to package things in a compelling way so it's not boring. You don't want to lose your reader. You want to
Mhm.
draw them in. And
Yeah,
things that
yeah.
make sense to us may not be that compelling of a story. To lead with something that's going to get the interest is it's nice to have an editor pointing that out to you.
If it wasn't for Dan, when you asked how many books have you written, the answer would have been one.
Oh,
And what he did was take 40 years of disjointed notes and essays and thoughts and help put them in a coherent message. And it turned out to be a book. I
oh, yeah.
didn't know how to do that. How would
No,
I know how to do that? And
right,
so I think it's important to find someone you can trust. We found Dan.
right.
There's probably others out there, but maybe not. Uh, and without having found him, I could never have gotten to that point where, oh yeah, that makes sense. I never thought of putting all that together. And it's a wonderful thing because you might be able to write, but that's a whole new skill set that goes
Right.
beyond writing.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Rob.
Yeah.
That's really, really
I,
kind.
I didn't know I had a second book in me, and Dan was very patient. I just kept coming to one of his other book things because when he advertised it, he said enthusiastic readers or I forgot some kind of general term.
Yeah.
And I would sit with all these other people who are actively having writing careers. Now, even
Yeah.
though I'm writing my second book, it's not my career. I'm not Dan
Book writing.
has
Yeah.
trained me to understand I'm an author, but
You
that's
are an
not my
author.
profession. I am
Well,
an author.
You are
Okay,
too, Rob.
very
we're authors.
valuable.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
authors. So
I'm not even an author.
Yes, you
I
are.
I
I
kept
can't even claim that.
I kept showing up. See, that was the thing. I kept showing up and I kept finding out information about writing that really was in my lane about human relations, how when
Yeah.
writing a ghostwriter has to interact and get the story from somebody and massage it. And still, some people share when they're writing nonfiction, some very traumatic information or this or that, or maybe
Yeah.
they think their life's really exciting and they don't want to give the most exciting part. They want to only write their most boring part. So how do you guide them to, I mean, there's so many things that raw wounds that are exposed, in writing and the whole thing. And so I was really interested because I'm a clinical social worker and a chaplain and an interfaith minister. I have all these human relations jobs. So that's what kind of pulled me in. And then I had an experience where somebody was talking about a stress book. And I thought, well, the content sounds good, but that's really hard. It's not going to immediately help people. So 4 days later, I wrote to Dan, okay, I have a second book in me. I'm going to be writing.
Yeah.
And that was February 2nd, this past February 2nd. And there I was. And I didn't put thought like, okay, maybe I'll write another book. I just felt compelled that
Hmm.
I thought I had a way of doing it. And that's how he pulled me in. He was the natural link with me because he had edited my first book, or he was on a different higher level. Because when I got the notes back from him, it was the first time after 2.5 years that I felt validation that I had something to say and someone would be interested in what I had to say. So I went almost 2.5 long, dark years writing and working with a writing coach, and that was a whole other story, but of the experience. And I got this wonderful man named Dan Good who validated and said, and I actually had heard his name, so I looked at his book and I read his book, and it takes place in the Bay Area. Yeah, and I'm not a sports person per se, but I read it because I wanted to honor him and his work, and I understood what it took now to write a book, and I loved the way he described things. But then this gentleman said that I had something worthwhile. It was like, it was amazing. Even just saying it now, I have chills going through my body. And so it was a little time after that where I saw he had an Instagram thing, and he posted about his new thing he was starting about some writers getting together. But he did put that little phrase about if you're just a reading enthusiast or whatever. So I showed up, and then I kept showing up, and then here I am. So you never know.
I appreciate all the kind words being thrown out. I'm really moved by that. I think in both of your cases, and I think these are really good examples, you both had really good books in you. You both had really good content, and you've spent a long time working on the content. And there's still that gap. I felt that gap too when I first got in the books, where I knew I could write, I knew how to tell a story, but there's still this other thing that is still beyond that makes it really difficult to write a successful book. And it took me literally half a decade of working on books before it finally really unlocked and clicked for me. Because early on, it's like, oh, great, you have to have a call to action, or you have to have a website, or you have to have this or that. But it's like, how do all these things connect together? And how does the message relate to the thing that you're trying to accomplish? Because we all have goals with our book. With Bonnie, it's visibility, and you want to help people, and like not visibility in terms of fame, but visibility in terms of like helping people to heal, and giving them insights into the lessons that you provide, or having the chance to meet with you. With Rob, it's telling a story, informing people, sharing this love of baseball with other people. But it's thinking about the reader journey. It's thinking about how all these stories connect together. What's the logical way from beginning to end? And I remember the first couple books I worked on as a ghostwriter. I did a couple books before I did this one, which really helped me kind of figure it out a little bit more. But even so, I go back to those books today and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done this differently or that differently. Like the writing is fine, but then there's these other pieces. I'm like, oh, I should have connected this. Like there's things with books that are different than any other form. And it's very easy to fall short of your goals with just little things. Like one example of this is your price point for your book. You could have the goal of attracting high level clients to work with you. And then if you offer the book at a low price point, thinking like, oh, I'm going to get a lot of people to pay attention to it, it might send a message to your core readers that this message isn't that valuable. It's not worth my time. Or you could price the book higher and try to have that validation of like, okay, now the right people are actually signing up. Or you could have a volume play and price the book wrong and just miss the mark. There's all these little things that can go wrong because with books, it's you don't know what you don't know. And there's so many little things that can go wrong with the book launch, with the book writing process, with the book editing process, even the cover. When we go back to covers, what covers work, what covers don't. A lot of people will spend all this time on the inside, and then they don't work with the right people, or they don't spend the right time on the cover. And now the cover is not drawing people in. It's not engaging people. So there's so many little things that can go wrong with the book process. And it's so meaningful when it goes right. But it's so frustrating when it doesn't.
Yeah.
I would just add one more thing. You bring up so many issues that didn't even cross my mind. This isn't my field. I'm not a book writer. I just happen to put stuff together that went into a book. And you bring up all these issues. Well, you were my second attempt. If you remember that guy, Joey, I told you about.
Joey.
And I thought, my God, what am I doing with this guy? And he just, first of all, didn't have any appreciation for baseball, which is my
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
But it was just the way he approached it. I knew this was wrong. And I said, I don't know a lot about anything, but I know this is wrong. And then I found Dan. It's important to find the right coach. It's important to find the right, the person who can actually say, oh, this is what you want to accomplish with this. And a light went on. I said, oh, I didn't realize that. So, it goes beyond all of that stuff because you don't, as you said, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't
Mhm.
even think of those things. I thought, hey, if you get a cover, I've already written the inside and send it off and everything will be fine. No, there's just so much more to consider. And you kept that going throughout the process, even after it was published. So
The business of being an author and all of that.
oh, that's the worst part of it.
Yeah. So
For me, that's
if
the worst part of it.
I can ask you this, is that, Dan has shared working with authors about baseball topics. So I'm sure I kind of heard about yours, but I'm not too sure because he, of course, with confidentiality, he would never mention a name.
Right.
So your story, could you give me a thumbnail or elevator pitch about your story?
Yes, and I will tell you, I spoke to a group last night from Tampa, a Zoom,
Okay.
and it was just great. It finally got me. My wife even said, "This is the first time I've heard you excited about this book in
Oh,
months."
good.
And I don't know why, but anyway, it's called Baseball Imposters. And the elevator pitch is it's a story about grown men lying about having played Major League
Oh,
Baseball.
okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
I
so
know. Yeah, I know
You
that.
mentioned this book,
that's
yeah.
simple,
Yeah.
and people resonate with it for some reason. At least they did last night in that group. And
That's exciting. Yeah.
well, it is uh, when you find people who say, "Hey, yeah, I want to buy your book." Of course, I don't know if they did or they didn't, and they probably won't. But it doesn't matter. It was a fun evening reading them stories and talking about those stories. And many of them, a few of them, are really old. I've been at this 40 years, 41 years.
It's
I started
fascinating
in
though.
1985,
Yeah.
and there were a couple of people in the room who said, "I'm not even that old." And I thought, shut up. I hate don't even bring that up.
But
But
I
yeah,
do have
fun.
to interject this, that there's something called, I think, stolen valor right now that
Yeah.
people are hearing about. Like
That's
this is another time, another way for you to promote your book
yeah.
because people are paying attention to this.
Hmm.
Imposters about a lot of things. And it's like, I know Dan's book has gone through waves of interest, right? You go up and down,
Right.
you'll see numbers change. This is a time to really hit it with marketing or something because it resonates. Yeah, and plus for non-sport people, they may be interested. Like again, I mean, I grew up with the Giants, and that is the San Francisco Giants. Okay, I got
Yeah.
that right. So
Yeah.
I was part of that. I knew about the World Series. I remember one time, I think when I was in fifth grade, the Dodgers and the Giants, they hated Dodgers down in LA before they came, I mean, after they came out,
Still
they were
do.
having I think that's the year they were having, what do they call the playoff? The baseball playoff. Come on.
World Series.
Thank you. I couldn't remember the World Series.
Wow.
And it was a big deal. It was a big deal. So in my youth, I knew more about baseball, and then later on, not so much. So, but what I'm saying is, I'm interested in your book about the stolen valor because there's a tie into my interest. I'm in the public health world too. There's a
Yeah.
famous cardiac study from Dr. Ornish out of San Francisco. One of the most active participants who had congestive heart failure. He implied to everybody that he had been an Olympiad,
Mm.
and that came out later.
Mm.
And so it's the same kind of thing you're talking about, playing whether they're minor baseball or major, whatever, minor league. See, I know those terms. So it really resonates with me about your book.
There was a woman in the audience last night who, when it was over, said she was a psychology professor. I'm trying to think what term
Yeah.
she used at the University of South Florida, and she said that she was in one of her tracks she teaches about imposter syndrome.
Oh, wow.
And she said, I'd like to touch base with you and collaborate on some things. And then she brought up stolen valor, which I allude to a couple of times in my book and talk about the difference and talk about how that's serious business. When you claim you defended our country and you are lying about that, when you put your life on the line, these guys didn't put their life on the line. These guys are just nuts. These guys are just liars. And there are some laws against
There are.
passing yourself off
There
as
are.
yeah. So I mean, there should be laws about passing yourself off as a former Yankee,
Mhm.
but there aren't. And that would be a former Met would be okay, but a Yankee, that's where we got a problem.
One of the things that really drew me in about Rob's research and his stories is the reasons for the lies are such a wide range. Some of
Yeah.
them are just people who feel unfulfilled and feel like, hey, let me make my backstory more interesting. Sometimes it's trying to gain favors. He had, there was one famous, I won't give the whole thing away, but there was one famous story in his book about a chiropractor who was passing off his baseball connections to try to say he, won the World Series with the Yankees. And it's interesting to see some of it is like some of it's blurry or muddy where like they're not really telling the truth, but they're not fully lying. Like maybe they played like in spring training with the team, but never made the major leagues, but still said
Yeah.
they made the. And then there's other times, and it gets murky too because sometimes people get called up to the major leagues and never actually get into a game, which is a completely separate category of players
Yeah.
than the ones that Rob's talking about. And then there's these other people who never even played beyond like high school, and they're saying they played Major League Baseball, and like literally there's a book and there's a website you can go to and check and everybody's name is listed. So it gets pretty easy to see if somebody is telling the truth or not.
Yeah, I would think contemporary times would be you could bust someone really easy now because
Oh my
there's
God, yes.
no
As I
privacy.
said last night, all you need is a cell phone.
Yeah.
And in the old days, I used to say in the mid 80s, if 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 your name is not in the 3,200 page baseball encyclopedia, which I used to lug around with me wherever I went, there's a 100% chance you didn't play Major League Baseball. I used
Wow.
to say that.
Yeah.
Now you could say, "Oh, really? You played for the Tigers?"
And then you
Hold on a second. Let me ask you. No, you didn't. No, and you didn't play in the minor leagues either. And you
Mhm.
know what? You didn't play college baseball. That's also baseballreference.com. But I think the beauty is in your book, and I hope in mine, that you can relate to it, that you either have been through a health crisis or a member of your family or a loved one, and you come out on the other end. Or every time I've given my presentation, without exception, I get somebody who says, yeah, I got a buddy who claims he played minor league ball, but he don't
yeah.
know how to catch or throw a ball. And you look him up and you say, well, your buddy didn't play minor league ball.
Wow.
And so it's something everyone can relate to. And I think both our topics, being nonfiction, lend
Yeah.
itself to saying, yeah, I can relate to that. I'll pick that book up, and
So as of when you did your first book, did you, I mean, I learned because I connected with the company and they kind of taught me early things, know your audience, know who your reader is. I really always had that focus. So when you wrote your first book, did you envision who this was for, or just people who love baseball, or a wider audience? What was your
so
feeling?
my first book, as Dan knows, is an anthology. I wrote 8 stories in it, and mine are the longest stories, but I had 42 other people who wrote stories.
Oh, okay.
And uh, it, it was about honoring our parents who taught us to love baseball or at least put up with our obsession, which in my case, I used to go past my mother as I was going outside with my ball and glove, and I'd say, "Hey, Mom, want to have a catch?" And
Wow.
and she would look up, and first of all, she never threw or caught a ball in her life.
Mhm.
I mean, they came over from Europe. She would be cooking sewing, or not sewing, knitting,
Yeah.
or cooking or knitting or reading a book. And she would look up and say, I don't know where my glove is, without
Oh,
even looking up. Or she would say, not this time, and of
how
course,
sweet
that
that
was her
she,
humor.
yeah.
It was her humor.
I have to say, this brought up a thought about the historian Doris Kearns Goodwin, I think her name is.
I love her,
She,
yeah.
yeah, her father, I remember reading an essay about her father who would come home and Doris, I guess her mother was bedridden. I think it was congestive heart failure for much of her life. But Doris used to listen on the radio about they were into baseball. And when the dad came home, he'd ask Doris, how'd the game go? Even though looking back, he obviously knew how it went. And she would give him a blow by blow description. And it was such a beautiful thing of the parents helping her love. And to this day, she's still surviving. She loves,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
as soon as you said that book, I immediately thought of her. Yeah.
But the point I want to get to, and it took me too long to get there, is I mistitled that book. It's before I knew Dan. I'm
Okay.
pointing to Dan.
Yeah.
It's before I knew him, or I wouldn't have done it. It's called "Hey Mom, Want to Have a Catch?"
I'll share
And
the
it's about
cover of
that
it.
story. But you know what it does? It cuts out all those who had a relationship with their dad, had a relationship
Oh,
with
yeah.
and I have had too many instances where people said, yeah, I played catch with my dad, or I didn't. But I wanted to include women in this, and I got
Yeah.
many women who wrote stories. But I thought in the title to say, "Hey, Mom," because that's a little unusual. I
Mhm.
didn't realize how it was going to, in some ways limit the audience, and I think that's what I did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it works with your subtitle because your subtitle is a collection of baseball stories honoring moms and dads who taught us to love America's national pastime. So I think with your book, the title works with the subtitle. I think you need the subtitle to say dads as well, just so you know. But it is interesting because I think too it takes a different spin because obviously Field of Dreams comes up, the movie, Want to Have a Catch, so and that's very dad focused. So I think it's interesting seeing you focus on the mom side on the cover, which is something that I think really gets overlooked in the baseball sense. I mean, my mom, definitely, my parents were both baseball fans, but my mom was really a baseball fan of like the Big
Wow.
Red Machine of the 70s. And, she really got us, me and my brother, into baseball in a really deep way. And, I
Explain that
think
to
it's
Bonnie, by
important
the
and special when, when parents can bring those passions out of us.
way. I say explain that to Bonnie, what the big red machine was.
No, I probably, I immediately went to, I lived in Boston or Massachusetts at the time in the 70s. And I remember some more baseball stuff there, but I wanted to tell you, Dan or Rob, you mentioned the title of your book before you showed the picture and I heard the word catch. And I immediately thought, gee, that could be fishing also, the word catch,
Yeah.
because I spend a lot of time making little titles I do shorts on YouTube 3 times a day. And boy, I really work on those titles to catch people so they would know,
Mhm.
pique their
Very
interest.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
I'm really into the words. So when I heard the catch again, without seeing the mitt, without seeing the words, but once he
Yeah.
showed Dan showed everything, and oh yeah, that makes sense. But when I
Yeah.
first heard
The
catch, my
picture and stuff.
brain,
Yeah.
yeah, my brain went all over the place. So visual is really important. So anyway, so you can rebrand and do new. I'm not saying you should, but I've learned that you could change a cover of a book and you can go back and do whatever.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so I
And the
just wanted.
title as well. See, I want to tell you, that's why this kind of thing that you host, Dan, is so valuable because you have these kind of conversations. I wouldn't have thought about fishing in any way. And I think before this book ever got published, if we had this conversation, Bonnie, you would have gotten me to stop in my tracks and think about it and maybe come up with a better title.
Mm.
And that's why this kind of conversation is so valuable. I have conversations with people who look at me like, yeah, I don't care. And here we do care about each other's struggles because we can relate to them. And I
Mhm.
think that's
Yeah.
valuable.
Well, I have to, as an aside, I have to say why words are so important to me because I deal with people about bereavement, about impending death, I weigh everything, even in a random conversation that I have, because maybe later I'll be dealing with them in a pastoral or a chaplaincy sense. I weigh every word that I say. I
Wow.
mean, it's become a subconscious kind of thing
Yeah.
for me. So I mean, maybe nobody else would say, "Oh, catch, that sounds like fish," but my mind is always going like that because I'm hyper focused on that.
Great.
Just communicate and support people.
Words matter, but and the way that we use words matter, and the way that we position words matter, and all these things factor together. And I think, when obviously we're talking about covers earlier, and like that matching of the title and the subtitle with the cover is also important, because really the subtitle, especially for nonfiction books, should tell the reader what this is about in a way that, maybe even your title cannot. Unwinding Pain is a great title for your book, but it could actually mean a number of things. Pain can mean a number of things.
Right.
So then it really requires the title and the subtitle to really connect and resonate and mean something. And I'm just pulling up your cover as well, Bonnie. I know you have your book next to you. Bonnie
I don't
Lester.
have mine.
That's been a long time since I showed it. I don't market it. I'm not really heavy in
Yeah,
marketing.
no, but your
Yeah.
subtitle is affordable and accessible ways to feel better now. And
Yeah.
I think that's so important because it
Yeah.
fulfills, it tells you what unwinding pain means, you
Yeah.
know? So when you think about the title and the subtitle together, it is a tough thing. It is a tough balance. I know with my book, Playing Through the Pain, you have Unwinding Pain, I have Playing Through the Pain. It was a line in a video, in a documentary video, not documentary, it was a profile that
Oh,
aired on Ken Kennedy in 97 after his MVP season. And it was just one line in the story. And I was like, that really resonated with me. So it stuck with me. And then I was like, what do I want to say with the subtitle? And the subtitle has to really explain the story. So I went with Ken Kennedy and the Steroids Confession that changed baseball forever.
yeah.
Initially, I wanted to say the life of Ken Kennedy and the Steroids Confession to change baseball forever, but it was a little too wordy, and my publisher just focused with the
Yeah.
shortened version. And it
Yeah.
was really interesting because I had, after the book came out, there were these there was this one baseball, it's called SABR, Rob knows the organization, Society of American Baseball Research, and this one chapter out of Ohio did a review of my book without me knowing about it. And it was really interesting because they just sat for an hour like criticizing my book. But one of the things that really stood out, I laughed about it. One of the things that really stood out was they said that the subtitle didn't match the book, that they wanted more about the Steroids Confession. And they didn't know it was going to be a life story thing. They thought it was going to be more about the
Oh.
Steroids Confession, which is a big part of the book. I was just like, yeah, okay, that's kind of valid. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't have done anything differently with the subtitle. But it's this negotiation back and forth every time of, what is this book? What is this book? What's the reader going to take away? And if it's confusing, if you can't explain that in one line, in one sentence, the reader is going to get lost. You could have the best book in the world, but if the reader doesn't understand from that moment what this book is about and how they're going to learn from it, they're not going to pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a very short window
Yeah.
to capture.
With that, I don't want to, this is about covers, and I don't want to open up a door that we're not going to go
No,
down, but
open all the doors.
the psychology of looking at the visual field,
Mhm.
if it's too busy, or if it, I mean, all of that plays in.
It all plays
Because
in.
I come from the nervous system background, so I'm
Yeah.
always talking about what the brain conceives and perceives by what the field of imagery it sees, and symmetry, and or even challenge. Sometimes the attention's caught because there's something that's unusual about it. So it's all the senses, when you're looking at a book. Even some people, they want a book and they want to feel it a certain way, and the weight. I mean, it's really interesting because I've had a lot of discussions with people about people who still read an actual book as opposed to doing Kindle or listen to doing audio.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other story where I wanted to make my book accessible, Rob. So I paid a professional voice actor to read my book. And because I was hearing, people with chronic pain and other health challenges, they don't want to sit and hold a book. And other people multitask nowadays. They're doing their dog walking and they're listening, on their pods. And so I wanted to give a lot of different modalities of how you could get my information. And then now more and more people on the spectrum, as they call it, they're responding of how they need to hear the material or read the material. And some people will get the audio and then own the book also. So it's beyond a book cover.
Maybe
It's
his book.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting because besides authoring a book, to know all these other aspects of the book, the business of the book, where
Right.
we hire professionals to help us out just as authors. And then the artists, the I don't know what their titles are nowadays, those who generate imagery for books, and then the lettering and everything. All of that it's an enormous responsibility because we could write the best book inside, but if someone's not going to reach for it because there's something objectionable or something off about the cover, that we fail.
Just catch it. Very quickly. Last night, somebody at the end of the evening, they were all, for once, saying nice things, and one guy said, I thought this was going to be a very serious discussion. And I thought it was going to be a dark side of fandom. I thought it was going to be very critical of baseball fans. And I was expecting this very dark topic to be covered in a very serious way, but it was really fun. And I thought, oh, so I misled people into thinking this is going to be trouble.
Were they expecting like the movie The Fan? Is that what they were thinking?
I think something to that effect. But anyway,
Wow.
What was
you have
your
a new guest.
what? Yes.
I'm sorry.
Welcome, Emma. Anyway,
Emma.
So Rob, what was the title of the Zoom presentation though? What would lead them to think that? I'm just curious.
Well, it was a Saber group, and
I don't know anything. I don't know what that is.
Well, there's the Society for American Baseball Research.
Oh, okay, that's
there's like 50 clubs.
Okay.
I've spoken to probably 20 now, but
Okay.
I was the speaker, so they knew baseball imposters, the dark side of fandom. Did that?
Okay, so that it had the word dark side. Okay, maybe that.
So
I'm going to share the cover. I'm going to share the cover like I did the other one too.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that one.
I don't have any of my books around. I've got papers everywhere, but not books.
Yeah, let me share the cover. I think it'll give.
Oh yeah, that's was my confusion because we talked about the other book cover. Okay.
Baseball imposters.
Again, if I had known Dan, maybe I would have done a better job on choosing a
title.
All right.
Oh, it does have the subtitle, The Dark Side of the Fandom. I like that word, fandom.
Fandom.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's interesting because it's tough to know. You could easily. I'm gonna cough. I'm sorry. You easily could have done like baseball stolen valor, but then it gets complicated because then it's like, okay, some people know the term stolen valor, some people don't.
That was a finalist. That was a finalist for the title.
Yes. If you were to say like, the people who lied about playing baseball, like it gets too complicated. It gets too wordy.
Yeah.
So I think the title and subtitle work. It's a nuanced topic. It's a nuanced, interesting topic to think about people who lie about it and some of the psychology behind it and some of the insights behind it and 40 years of researching this phenomenon. No, I remember when this is going back 5 years or so, I had a person I was working on with the book for a little while. We ended up not finishing the book, but he was telling me how his dad played in the Pacific Coast League in the 1930s. And I was all drawn into it. I was like, this is incredible, because you had these amazing players like Joe DiMaggio came up, through the Pacific Coast League in the 1930s. It was an incredible league back then. It was basically like the minor leagues weren't fully organized and laid out the way they are today. It was very murky, but the Pacific Coast League was like one step below the major leagues. It was really like the top tier. And, and it was interesting when this guy's telling me this. So I'm going on newspapers.com that night. Oh, I got to go find about his dad. And I'm not finding anything. And then I'm finding articles from his dad in like Oklahoma in the 30s and the 40s. I'm like, this guy never even lived out there then. Like it didn't exist. Like this was not part of the story, and I'm looking at all the same places that Rob was looking when he was researching these people. That he never played minor league baseball. He never played major league baseball. He had no connection to professional baseball. So it was all a lie. And this son unknowingly had been passing this off as truth probably his whole life, you know? So he doesn't even know this thing about his dad. I know more about his dad's non-career than he does. I didn't even tell him about it. I just felt bad for him because I'm like, your dad never played.
That's a hard situation. And someone's fantasy origin story. That's a family history. It's like going in with sterling silver that you think is sterling silver to have it appraised, and they say, "Oh, Auntie Gertie's stuff is just plated." You know, I mean, it has that. But boy, that's a tough situation, Dan.
And some of the people that Rob talks about in his book had been passing off that they had played Major League Baseball for so long, and then they passed away. And now it starts getting attention of so-and-so player died, and there's a real player who's using that name in another state who actually did play, and he has to answer questions of like, no, I'm not dead. Someone else was passing off my name.
Oh, that's messy.
I read a couple of obituaries that were comical, you know, and families found out after the guy died, but they were so ridiculous. You know, a guy claiming he holds the record for 15 unassisted triple plays, and the most triple plays in the history of baseball. Nobody's ever done more than one. Nobody's ever, and he had 15. No, he had 18.
18.
Might as well.
It's ridiculous.
Lie big, right?
But anyway, I treat it with humor. I treat it with, you know, and people enjoy it. And the book itself lends itself to think, oh, this is going to be a dark topic. We're going to get into, you know, some all kinds of discussion of legal problem. And no, it's a fun way to actually approach it. And if people come to the events, they enjoy it, but they're surprised.
So your third book, is that going to be the baseball from a different
More
angle?
baseball stories. Yeah.
Oh, but what angle? I figured it was baseball. So what angle? I mean,
well, I'm not sure. I think there's a Dan Good in my future.
Oh, okay.
And he
you
helped
obviously
me in the last one, kind of.
you have the important ingredients. You have passion.
Yeah.
You have brains.
Well, I don't know
Great
about
personality and a sense of
Yeah, I
humor.
don't know about any of that.
There's a sense of humor there. I know that there is one.
I feel bad that Emma has had to listen to all this drivel about baseball. And now she's here, and I'd love to hear her story. I feel bad that I've totally monopolized this, and I step back.
Great.
No, not at all. I feel like I'm chiming in so late, and what are we talking about? It sounds like
we don't know.
Fun.
We're not sure either.
We've been talking about covers. We've been talking about titles and subtitles. We've been talking about all the things that you don't know when you're working on a book that you learn later. All the things, you know, it's really interesting to break it down and to think about what draws people in, what turns them off to reading the book, you know, and how you can really explain to them very quickly what the book is about. You know, Emma, I know that you've been working on that yourself. Like it's a journey to really get to the point where you can quickly, succinctly tell someone what the book is about, because that's the key to it, that breaking through all the noise and breaking through all the, you know, you can write 30, 50, 75,000 words. And if you can't explain to them in a sentence or a couple words what the book's about, it's going to be tough to really find that connection with somebody.
Yeah, I've had a lot of stress about that over the past few months as I've started to share with people that I have written a book. The first draft is done, but you know, when people ask, "Oh, what's your book about?" and I'm always like, "Okay, it's a memoir with a message," and they're like, "Okay, what's it about?" And I have found myself kind of like run on sentences, right? Of like, I'm 2-3 sentences deep. And in my mind, I'm like, this is too much. Like, I have to figure out how to explain this in a short, attention grabbing way. And this actually, I was talking to Dan about this the other day. I was on a walk with someone at a park here in Salt Lake City. And they asked, "Oh, what is your book about?" And all of a sudden, I figured it out. All that I need to say is, it's a memoir with a message. And the message is that through memory, we heal. Memory isn't something to fear. It isn't something to run from, because memory is actually the bridge that leads us back to ourselves. And I said that to her, and I was all like, oh my gosh, there it is. So I love that, because it's something that I recently just experienced, and it feels good to feel confident now when someone asks me, versus kind of going everywhere in my mind of like, well, I have so many different points in my book, and it's for so many different audiences, and like, what do I focus on? And now I know. So I'm really grateful.
Great.
So
That's
it's a
amazing.
process. I mean, it's a process.
Yes.
It takes you a
Yeah.
while. We have to
Yes.
we have to be patient with what the process is.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Trust
what I've learned.
Patience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. No, patience is so important because I think a lot of times with books, we want to just get to the end. We want to get to that next thing. We want to like we feel like it needs to be unlocked. And I think that's why a lot of people do use AI in search of answers. I've been working with somebody recently and they were trying to come up with an outline. They were spitting it through AI again and again and again. I was like, no, this isn't it. Like, just pull back, like talk it through. It's there. I think a lot of times we want to look for the easy answer as to like figuring it out, but the struggle makes it valuable, and the struggle is what helps us really figure it out, because otherwise, if there's no friction and there's no tough times and there's no difficulty with unlocking it, and it's super easy, we don't really challenge it. We don't actually get to the point where we're like, yes, this is it, I know it now. And I think those friction points matter, because that's our gut instinct telling us like, all right, it's not quite there yet. Emma, when you've gotten those questions other times about what the book is about and didn't quite have the answer, like, it's like, okay, internally, even if you don't say it at the time, internally, like, I have to keep working at this, I have to figure it out.
Exactly.
I have something to say about that just happened yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm working on a chapter, on chapter 7, and I have it's a repository of all these experiences about people who are in the sandwich generation.
Yeah.
They're a certain age, they got the adult, almost adult kids, and their parents are ailing one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I was on top of it, and it had a lot, I think was good. But there was something about it that I didn't quite understand, that I wasn't in it. Not so much that I was in it, but when I woke up really early yesterday morning, when I had a big heavy duty packed day of going to do a hospital visitation and all sorts of chaplaincy stuff, it finally hit me. And it was like, oh yeah, I lived through that experience myself with both my separate parents. And it was like my aha moment about, oh yeah, I know this. And I don't know, it's the only time in this book, like I'm in the 7th chapter, I didn't have that I know this feeling. And it was just
Mhm.
interesting because I was so busy looking at all the different factors that even though when I write it, I bring my experience and knowledge into it. It was just once I said to myself, well, Bonnie, you did this and this and this, and then you did this and this and this, and you lived through that and you felt that and you did. I said, oh yes, I lived and breathed it. It's like when I write from an authentic posture, I feel like each chapter I've lived and breathed. Like I have one about the history of stress. I studied that and I knew it over the decades, and I felt good about that. I knew the science and all these other things. But this chapter, for some reason, it wasn't like I didn't fully, my respiratory system, my emotional respiratory system didn't fully breathe and live it, until I finally said, yeah, I know this. So and I was elated. I thought, oh, this is more learning about being an author. This is really neat.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, have you felt that about your chapters when you write? Which ones really vibe with you and other ones that you struggle with? Do you ever feel that at all?
Yeah, I've definitely felt like that on this journey. There's been times when, um, yeah, there's parts of the book that I wasn't really like connecting with as strongly as I thought I would. And and then I realized that it's because I wasn't sitting down and really like being super honest with myself, of like allowing myself emotionally to really go there. I was telling myself that I was, but I actually really wasn't. And it's just a reminder to me, similarly to what you just said, Bonnie, that so many times it's like, wait, I did this. Like, why am I not explaining it? Like, why am I telling the reader versus showing the reader when I lived through this? Like, that means for me that I have a door that's still a little closed and I need to push it open a little bit more. And through that, because my book is a memoir, I also have learned throughout this journey that there is a way to tell my story without telling my story in some parts. And it is okay sometimes if that door is a little more closed. But I love what you bring up about like how it feels inside, going through each chapter, and really like connecting with my intuition. I mean, I had no idea what this process was going to involve. And it really does involve so much connection with self, like being so aware. Um, am I just writing this to just write something? Or like is there like a deeper purpose to this part, or that I need to dig into and find? Um, yeah. I love that point, Bonnie.
I love everything both of you just said, and I really think it's so valuable to really like explore that and dig into that and find that line in the sand for you. For all of us, there's always this element of how open do I want to be, or how much do I want to say about a certain topic. Like vulnerability matters. And the thing for me that I come back to, for Bonnie, for Emma, for people who are writing stories about healing in some way, is like the people who are reading this book are people who are you 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. These are people who are in the places that you used to be. They're in them now. And they're looking at you as a beacon of hope because you've gotten to somewhere else. You've been able to get past the place that they're in. And they're saying, I need some guidance. So being able to step into that, being able to step in that space and really go there, in the ways that you can, it's so valuable. I think that's why books are such a strong connective piece, that you can pick this up and understand what someone was feeling from 10, 20, 100, 1,000 years ago, and it still means something. It's just so special to be able to connect that way with the reader. And it really does come back to that, being able to connect with your reader, to know these are the reasons why people are interested in reading this book. It's not just to be entertained. Even for Rob, even your book, it's more of an entertainment kind of book, but it's still not. It's still, I need to figure out, what in terms of baseball fandom is going to draw people in, what in terms of the relationship between parents and kids and the way that we pass baseball down through generations is going to resonate with people. It's still tapping into that and figuring out like why is someone going to want to read this book, and what's great about it is there's readers out there who are interested in reading all of these books, because people are all in different places, learning different things, experiencing new things. So it's so much fun when we can really explore that and see, what does my readership look like? Who's going to be interested in this? And then writing a book that's going to connect with them. And I think all of you have done an awesome job. I mean, obviously working with you directly, all of you have done such an awesome job of doing that in your own ways. And I just think it's really special when it works as well as it has in your cases.
I just hear them and there's depth to what they're writing and how they're thinking. And I think, what am I doing here?
Because you belong here. You belong here.
Yeah. Why
I'm
am I
intrigued.
here?
No, I'm intrigued by your book. I'm intrigued. I'm touched by that.
But-
The one about the parent and child, and about the sport, and just how important I think sports are in our society, and they're
Mm.
cutting out PE and all that, and what that brings to a community of young people,
I'm just sharing that. I
Absolutely.
feel like I'm in AA and you guys are in the big league, and I hear you talking, and there's an aha moment when I see there's a bridge to, the past, and I'm thinking, God, I never think that deeply about anything. And so I'm
Okay,
thinking,
I'm gonna
yeah.
point of privilege, I'm going to show you my paperclip chain. I keep it here on my desk to remind me when I was getting off of all that heavy duty medication and could barely walk half a block, I assigned myself one paperclip a day to show myself I was making progress. And then I transferred it to everything else to regain, after losing 30 years of my life, back into society and a fulfilling career. This is my, and I've taught this to people over all the past 10 years, and they send me chains. They say, and it's free. You know, a paperclip is barely 1 penny. And I'm all about accessible, affordable ways to feel better, whether, you know, physical or emotionally better. And so I remind myself of where I was. And so I always pick it up in the morning like a rosary, you know, that's profane.
I'm so shallow. Hearing that, I just think I'm so shallow.
No, you're not.
Oh,
But I am.
No.
But I really am.
Yeah. No, I think what it is, and I sense from some of the story, because I've met Emma before on here, is when you struggle through, you really like, well, actually, Emma, when Rob said that he really needs to do his 3rd book because he's having some health challenges and he knows that time's important, every day counts. And so along with that, so you are not shallow, Rob, but you know, we live each day as broadly and grandly and with respect for ourselves as we can. And that's healing. You know, that's how we heal in the morning, is to respect ourselves and not beat ourselves up and feel diminished or less than. And that's what
you two are writing something or a couple of things that will improve the human condition, that will in many ways add to a body of knowledge. And I look at what I'm doing and I'm thinking, really? Why? That whole quarter of this screen, you know, is a waste.
Oh.
Because what you're doing is really incredibly worthwhile and will help people.
I want to see
well,
you
what you're
again.
doing is also incredibly
I want to see you
worthwhile.
again at one of these meetings. So we get like, Dan taught me that I can use the word author, but I want to have you keep coming back, Rob, so we can have you talking in a more respectful way to yourself.
Oh,
Because we hold you with
I
higher
hope I'm being
regard.
respectful to you guys, because
No, you are.
I'm in
But
awe to be sitting in the same room.
no, I'm excited by your book. Look, you know, I'm not into sports, but I'm already thinking, okay, that book sounds really neat. It's charming.
Mhm.
I'm having all these vibes about it. You know,
It's
What
a
we haven't-
fascinating book. It really is.
yeah,
But what we have in common, Bonnie and Emma and me, we found Dan.
yeah.
And I will tell you from my personal experience, without that, I wouldn't be sitting here, because I'd still have all those papers all around. I don't know how to put them together and turn them into a story, let alone a book. And I think that's just so critical, to find a way to make it meaningful, or to make it in some ways make sense. And I think that was my goal, which was probably on a bar that is so much lower than what you guys are doing. And keep up the good work. I really, I can't wait to see what you come up with. And Bonnie, I'm going to buy your book. So you'll see a spike.
Well, I do have to say, I have a client waiting. I'm 1 minute late. I didn't realize what time it was, but I have someone in chronic pain that I'm helping. So I'm going to have to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And I'm so
Great
glad
to see you, Bonnie.
Did I see you again, Emma?
So
And-
good to meet you, Rob.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's great to see you again, Dan.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Okay, I'll see you next time. Okay.
Yes, next time. So yeah, I am going to wrap up this call. I'm excited to meet again, and just been a lot of fun to be able to have this conversation. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Bonnie. Just be really great to be able to chat about books, and just want to keep this going and keep building momentum. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yes. And thank you, Dan. Thank you for putting this together.
My
Such a
pleasure.
joy.
Awesome.
Emma, usually after something like this, I get an email saying, do not come to the next meeting. Don't have anything. I will get a cease and desist. And,
No, Rob, please
So-
come back. Come back.
Emma, good luck in your journey. I really look
Thank
forward
you.
to reading your stuff.
Thank you so much. You as well, Rob.
Awesome.